Yo, what's up, guys? It's MTG Man. I just uploaded the Mythic review. So this is the rare review. We're going over every card in the Wilds of Eldraine set. Um, and I'm gonna giving my opinion. I know mostly Commander. I've played a little bit of Pauper. So when we get to the commons sections, I'll tell you a little bit about that. But overall, I'm just gonna give the Commander opinion, how I see these cards are gonna be played, maybe what decks they'll go in. So if you want Regal Bunicorn, we did that in the last episode, so I'm not gonna cover it again because I don't want to. So first up is Mosswood Dread Knight. It's a 2 mana trample 3/2, which is already a solid stat line. And then when it dies, you can cast its Adventure, which is a draw a card, lose a life. So you can cast it for its Adventure cost to more or less cycle it, um, and then cast it from exile as Mosswood Dread Knight, have it die, and then pay to cycle it again. I think that's gonna be strong, but let me know. Just getting back into this. So the Iron Crag. So we've already seen this before in Iron Crag Feat, which was back in the original Throne of Eldraine. It added 7 red mana, and you could only cast one more spell this turn. So this is 2 mana, add colorless. Already, that's solid. We're looking at like Mind Stone, uh, Liquid Metal Torque, like that sort of 2 mana rock. So that's pretty good. And then whenever a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, you may have it become a legendary equipment named Everflame, Hero's Legacy. If you do, it gains equip 3, and equip creature gains +3/+3, and loses all other abilities. So overall, I'm gonna say this is pretty strong. It's gonna come down early game as just a mana rock, and late game it's gonna help you pump your creatures. It really fits whatever situation you need. Um, so yeah, I see this seeing some play. Yenna Red Tooth Regen. Sorry, I had to like take a sip of iced tea. Yeah, this stuff really wears on my voice. So 2 green white, Elf Noble, 4/4. Which it's odd to notice that a lot of the 4 mana creatures in the Mythic section were like 3/4s. This is a 4/4. I just think it's interesting how the stat line is, given that some of their abilities really weren't anything to write home about. So 2 tap, choose target enchantment you control that doesn't have the same name as another permanent you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary. If the token is an aura, untap it and scry 2, activate only as a sorcery. So there's 2 ways you can play this. The way I see playing it is doing like you put down Doubling Season, copy it, create a token of Doubling Season. However, that token is going to come in with a second copy of it because of Doubling Season, and then you're creating triple tokens and triple +1+ or triple counters as well. So I think that's how I would play it. However, you can also just go in the route of pumping her up with auras, getting her really big, and then swinging in, which she is really good colors for doing that. Next up is Ogre Chairlord. Let's hope this isn't as broken as the last last ogre we saw printed. So it's a 6 mana 6/5 with menace, and when it enters the battlefield or attacks, you create 2 rats. Rats can't block. Then if you control 5 or more rats, each rat you control gets +2/+0 till end of turn. I think this is cool in that it builds a board. However, I think rats in red is a little bit under supported, I guess. Maybe there'll be more later on in the set review, but I haven't really seen any. Rats are kind of like a black theme. So I think this is okay, but I don't. It's nothing to write home about. Next up is Sleep Cursed Fairy. So Flying Ward 2 enters with 3 stun counters on it. It's blue, and then you can pay 1 and a blue to untap it. So notably, the stun counters only matter if it wants to untap. So I see how you play this is like turn 1 Sleep Curse Fairy, turn 2 swing in for 3, turn 3 I guess untap it or whatever. It's kind of like Delver of Secrets being that 1 mana beatdown creature, but it does protect itself, which is cool. I could see this maybe seeing some modern play. I don't know. Next up, the Enchanting Tale arts are kind of cool. So Gumdrop Poisoner. It's a human warlock, 2 and a black lifelink, and whenever it enters the battlefield, up to 1 target creature gets -X/-X, where X is the amount of life you gain this turn. And then you can pay black to create a food token, which if you don't know, food tokens you can sacrifice to gain, I think, 3 life? Might be 4. Let's check. Well, that doesn't help. So I guess you can sacrifice for either 3 or 4, and then have her come in and remove a creature. Alternatively, this works in any black life gain deck, like Veto. I don't know. I could see this being powerful, but only in the decks that want it. I don't see it being a staple. Elusive Otter. Prowess, 1 blue. Creatures with power less than Elusive Otter can't block it. This X and green distribute X +1/+1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. So this is pretty good, especially for prowess decks. Anything that's playing like I think Murktide plays some prowess stuff. Anything in that kind of deck could definitely use it. I really hope this doesn't get banned in Commander 2 like Lutri, because, they clearly just hate otters. They're adorable. But yeah, I can see this seeing some play. The Grove's Bounty effect really isn't great, but it's nice to have the options. Blind Obedience. Next up is Godric, Cloaked Reveler. He kind of looks, I want to say Doctor Strangey, but that's not. I'm not really sure. So he's 1 red, haste, celebration, which I think. No, that's new to the set. As long as 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control this turn, it's a dragon with base power and toughness 4/4. It has flying, and dragons you control get +1/+0 until end of turn for a red. So the 2 or more non-land permanents is a little bit of a problem, because if you're playing a dragon deck, because clearly he wants to pump your whole board of dragons, it's going to be a problem because your cards are going to cost a lot. However, its effect is really cool, but I don't see this really going anywhere powerful. Like a niche EDH deck, that's about it. Next up is Charming Scoundrel. 1 red, haste, enters the battlefield, you can choose 1. So you either create a treasure, discard then draw, or create a Wicked Roll, which enchanted creature gets +1/+1, and when it's put into the battlefield, or put into the graveyard from the battlefield, each opponent loses a life. So it can come in as a 2/2 haste, it can come in and create you a treasure. I think it's very modular, like it can come in at different points of the game, but I don't see it being anything overpowered. Next up is Decadent Dragon. 2 red, flying trample. When it attacks, create a treasure token. On the other side, it's 2 and a black, exile the top 2 cards of target opponent's library face down. You can look at and play those cards as long as they remain exiled. So it's kind of like a reckless impulse effect, but for one of your opponents, which I think is pretty cool. Opponents hate when you steal their stuff with Ragavan, so I could see this seeing some play. And Decadent Dragon itself is flying trample 4/4. The body's good. It doesn't really like cost reduce like Murktide or like get really big, but creating a steady flow of treasures can be good. I don't know. I think this will see play in some commander decks, but I don't really think it's gonna be like an all-star. Song of Totentans. X and a red, create X 1/1 black rat creature tokens with this creature can't block. Creatures you control gain haste until end of turn. So I could see this being good in like a Piru deck where you're trying to go wide, something like that. However, I don't think this is good enough to be strong, like overpowered. Like I said earlier, red rats don't really like exist. Maybe there'll be more in the set, but like I don't see this really going anywhere. Next up is Twining Twins. 4 mana, Flying Vigilance, Ward 1. 1 white, exile target non-token creature. Return to the battlefield under its owner's control at the beginning of the next end step. So, it can flicker your own stuff, which is cool. The body on the front is nice, but I think it's a bit overcosted. Well, not like overcost. It doesn't do enough to be worth paying 4 mana, is what I would say. However, the flicker effect could prove me wrong. So I don't know. I think this card's one of the ones where we're going to have to wait and see. Next up is Cruel Somnophage. So 1 black. I'm assuming this is working with Ashiok. Its power and toughness are equal to the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So it's kind of like white of Precinct 6. I think that's what it's called. And you can pay 1 and a blue to make target player mill 4 cards. Overall, I think the mill ability is okay. I think the body's okay. I think this will see some play in different decks. There's back in the original Theros, there's a blue and black god that says each creature you control has tap. Target player mills cards equal to its toughness. So I think you could use something like Cruel Somnophage to, like, every time you have somebody mill, it's going to get stronger, and you can just keep having the mill if you have some way to untap it. And then the Can't Wake Up mill ability is okay. Yeah, I'm having trouble because I feel like Modern might have some use for this, but I'm not entirely sure. Next up is Malevolent Witchkite. So it's 6 mana flying. When it enters the battlefield, sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens, then draw that many cards. So I don't think this is good enough for what it is. You have I'm not really sure on this one. Alright, because drawing cards is always good. You could sacrifice something like Clues and Treasure, if that's what your deck's doing. But in general, you really don't want to be sacrificing enchantments, because they're kind of important. I don't know. I don't think this card's going to see a lot of play. Next up is Sentinel of Lost Lore. 1 green. It's a 3/4. When it enters the battlefield, choose 1 or more. Return target card you own in exile that has an adventure to your hand. Put target card you don't own in exile that has an adventure on the bottom of its owner's library. Exile target player's graveyard. So, I think this is interesting because it could be a hate piece in something like Modern, Exile and Graveyards, and it's 3 mana, 3/4, so the body's good. There's probably a good adventure ability you'd want to take, like the Flicker ability on the one fairy we looked at, the Twining Twins, that sort of thing. However, I really don't see adventures becoming prominent enough for the second ability. So, oh wait, it can do one or more, so it can do all of them. I think this might be good. It'll be good in the adventure deck for sure. I'm not. This one's a puzzle as well. Next up is Hilda's Crown of Winter. So Hilda was one of the legends in the Mythic section. 3 to tap target creature. This ability costs 1 less to activate during your turn. So I guess this does activate Hilda's ability, and you'll be able to pay the one that you're saving to create a golem or whatever. You can then pay 3 and sacrifice it to draw a card for each tap creature your opponents control. Which let me give you a little tip here. That effect is the same as borrowing 100,000 arrows, which is a card I really like. So I think that'll see play in the deck. Overall, I think it's pretty strong, but really it's going to be stuck to Hilda's deck, and I don't see it seeing that much play everywhere else. Though notably, it does tap down a blocker on each of your turns, so it could see some sort of play, but I don't think so. Next up is Tangled Colony. It's one in a black, which if you didn't know, that's like a real thing. It's called like a mouse wheel, rat wheel, whatever. They get their tails tangled. It's crazy. So it's a 3/2, can't block. When it dies, you create X/1/1 black rats, where X is the amount of damage dealt to it. So you're gonna create at least 2 rats. My take on this is you either want to be the one who's dealing damage to it, like something like Pure the Volatile, which it dies, deals 7 damage to each non-legendary creature, which includes Tangled Colony, which means it'll create 7 1/1s. The fact it can't block hurts it a little bit, but it's definitely a beatdown creature. It's going to give you sacrifice fodder if that's what you're looking for. I think it's got some, potential. Restless Fortress. I'm going to say this for all of the creature land. I generally don't think creature lands can keep up in current metagame. I mean, they're fine for tap lands, but it becomes a 1/4 that whenever it attacks, defending player loses 2 life, you gain 2 life. So it could be good in some sort of life gain deck, but I don't think creature lands can keep up at this point. So Extraordinary Journey, XX blue. When it enters the battlefield, exile up to X target creatures. For each of those cards, its owner may play it for as long as it remains exiled. Whenever one or more non-creatures enter the battlefield, if one or more of them entered from exile or was cast from exile, you draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. And that's what kills it, the once each turn. Because your opponents are going to want to get their stuff back ASAP. They're going to cast it on their next turn, but you can only get it once per turn. So it's not going to matter. I think if you're coming up against a play from exile deck, you could do just pay blue, and then, whenever they cast off of Ragavand or whatever, it could be good. However, the fact is, it has to be creature, which really just hurts it. I don't think this is good. Not good as multi-targeted removal, because they just get it back. Not good as a draw engine, because it's once per turn. This is so limited, I don't see it having any play. Next up is Rankle's Prank. So 2 black. Choose one or more. Each player discards 2 cards. Each player loses 4 life. Each player sacrifices 2 creatures. And all I can think about this is Tergrid, God of Fright. This is going to be hell in Tergrid. I'm sorry. You have 3 opponents. Each of them is discarding 2 and sacrificing 2. That's 6 discards, 6 sacrifices. This card is going to be disgusting. I'm not looking forward to this. This is going to be terrible. But in decks other than that, I'm not really sure. I could see it being in like mono black burn in modern, because that deck's lacking cards. But outside of that, I don't think it's gonna be seeing play outside of like Turgid, maybe 2-rock. Next up is Gruff Triplets. They're Setter Warriors, 3 green for 3/3. Sorry, 3 green. Trample. When it enters the battlefield, if it isn't a token, create 2 token copies of it. When it dies, put a number of +1/+1 counters on it, equal to its power on each creature named Gruff Triplets. I think this could be a good flicker target. However, outside of that, I don't see it seeing too much play. 6 mana hurts, even if it's 6 mana, 9 power on the board. I think they're just gonna die, and I don't really see it being overly strong. Again, I don't think creature lands generally hold up. However, this one's... the fact that it has trample and it's a 5/5 really helps. And the fact that it can either turn one of your creatures into a 3/3 or help get rid of one of your opponent's creatures, I think it has potential. At least more than the last one, but I really don't think it can keep up. Entering tapped really hurts. Next up is Likeness Looter, blue and a black, flying, and then you can loot, draw a discard. And then you can pay X, becomes a copy of target creature in your graveyard with mana value X, except it has flying in this ability. So this could be really good. You could accidentally mill things or purposely discard things that you want it to become later, or if you need specific hate pieces, you could just have it be a big body. I know there are creatures with big bodies that have bad ETB abilities, and it's not copying those. So you could pay 4, have it become a 9/8 Eater of Days, and you don't have to pay for, you don't have to skip 2 turns. Or you could pay 5, it's a 10/10 leveler, but you don't have to get rid of your library. So I think it could see some play. I'm not sure if it's going to see play the way I think about it, but I think it's pretty good, especially with that flying sticking around. Woo. Archon of the Wild Rose. So it's 2 white, it's a 4/4, flying. Other creatures you control that are enchanted by auras have base power 4/4 and flying. So, quick question, what exactly are Archons? Because they're always riding on a flying thing. They kind of seem angel-y, but, I can't really tell what they do. And they're on, a lot of planes. This one specifically, I'm kind of meh about. Because in general, okay, enchanting your own stuff and making them 4/4s could be good. It's kind of like that one that whenever creatures with +1/+1 counters are angels with flying and are 4/4s. However, I think this can hurt sometimes, because sometimes you want to enchant your big creatures to give them haste, and then, whoops, now it's a 4/4. So, this isn't my kind of card. I'm gonna say, nah. Sir Ginger, the Meal Ender. So this was in a original Eldraine promo, but it didn't get printed as a card till now. So it's a 2 mana 3/1. When it enters, it has trample, hexproof, and haste as long as an opponent controls a planeswalker. That's because its spouse was wait, I think it's a she. I'm not sure. Was eaten by Garuk or Garruk. Whenever an artifact you control is put into the graveyard from the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter and scry 1. This is gonna be good with treasures that kind of thing. Decks like Corvold could probably use it because they're always sacrificing stuff. Then you can sacrifice and gain life equal to its power. So I think that ability is okay as well. It's somewhat similar to Gingerbrute. Um, and it can gain life if you really need it, if an opponent's about to finish off a game. Uh, um, but I think it's an interesting play space. I think it can get big. Um, Building around it as a commander sounds like a challenge. So once it comes out and the price isn't $259, I might do it in one of my super budget builds. Next up is Relentless Cottage or Restless Cottage. I don't think this one's going to be able to keep up. So it's a 4/4, which is okay body, creates a food, which isn't great, and then exiles up to one target card from a graveyard. I don't think the body's big enough. It doesn't have evasion or trample. And I don't think that ability's going to be good enough. The art's kind of cool, though, so I kind of hope I'm wrong. Next up is The End. This is kind of wacky. So it's 2 black. Costs 2 less to cast if your life total is 5 or less. Then you exile target creature or planeswalker. Searches controller's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with the same name as that permanent. Exile them. That player shuffles and draws a card for each card exiled from their hand this way. Notice it says from their hand, because cards like Necromentia is just the number of cards total. This being in the hand is very different. I'm not entirely sure how good this would be, because at that point you're probably already losing the game, and the card has to be on the battlefield already, which means you're probably in a bad situation. And it has to be a creature or planeswalker. So you can't get rid of, like, Indomitable Creativity or, like, a key combo piece half the time. I just think it's wacky that it's called The End. Next up is Questing Druid. I don't know if it's anything like Questing Beast, but 1 and a green. Whenever you cast a spell, it's white, blue, black, or red. Put a +1/+1 counter on it. So it's gonna be good in your Wooburg decks. 1 in a red. Exile the top 2 cards of your library. Until your next end step, you can play those cards. So it's kind of like Ren's Resolve, Reckless Impulse. However, you only have this turn to cast them. So you kind of either... I guess it's good if you really need a land or if you're ahead on board state. But I'm not really sure. Oh, because it's a Questing Druids, Seek the Beast. That's kind of cool. But I don't really see... I don't think it's going to be seeing too much play. Wait, what's the stat line? Yeah, no. Bramble Familiar. So it's a mana dork. You pay... It's 2 mana, 2/2. Elemental Raccoon. That's kind of cute. And then you can discard a card to return it to its owner's hand. So other ability is Fetch Quest. So you pay 7, mill 7, then put a creature, enchantment, or land from among the milled cards this way onto the battlefield. I think enchantment is key because you can put on some really strong stuff like Omniscience, that sort of thing. You could cheat out big creatures, and the fact you can do it multiple times by playing this and then casting Bramble from exile and then bringing it back to the hand. I think it's cool, but it's kind of gimmicky. I don't see it being overused or used in general. As for Toll, Shared Animosity. Goose Mother. X, green, blue. Enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. Has flying. When it enters, create half X food tokens rounded up. Whenever it attacks, you can sacrifice food to draw a card. Notable, it is legendary, which is cool. I think this is going to be a fun commander build. A little bit goofy. And the fact it draws you cards is actually, I think, surprisingly useful. I don't think it's going to see any modern play, but commander-wise, I think it'll be a fun card to throw into decks. Um, Werefox Bodyguard, 1 white white 2/2 flash. When it enters, exile up to one other target non-fox creature until it leaves the battlefield. Sacrifice it, gain 2 life. I don't know why you'd want to sacrifice it unless you're using this as a really expensive flicker. I think this definitely belongs in Elish Norn from All Will Be One, because being able to copy that ETB is going to be good. But I don't know. I don't think this is going to be all too strong. I could be wrong, because there is like Skyclave Apparition that does something similar. However, this is going to give them the card back instead of just a spirit. So, I don't know. Next up is Lady of Laughter, 3 white white, flying, 4/5. At the beginning of your end step, if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. So this could be good. I think 2 or more non-land is a bit hard. However, I guess you could create tokens, so that sort of helps. But I think I don't really see it. I don't think it's going to see play anywhere, actually. Who am I kidding? Devouring Sugar Mall. 2 black 6/6 Menace Trample. At the beginning of your upkeep, you sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or token. If you don't, you tap it. So the fact you're tapping it, you're not even sacrificing it, makes it very strong. Because you can miss an upkeep trigger if you really don't need it. And then you can pay 1 and a white to create a white human creature token and a food token. So you could play Have for Dinner on turn 2. And then turn 4, you bring out Devouring Sugar Mall. And it's a pretty big threat. I think it could definitely see some play in Modern. However, I think it'd be a little bit too gimmicky. Definitely some play in Commander. It does kind of hurt that Have for Dinner is 1 and a white, because I feel like Asmar and a Mardukai to Stunakoldakar could really use this card. Just because, Underworld Chef, and it's like a big food monster. I guess it's supposed to be like a food mimic, and like it's not actually food, because it's weird to me that like Ginger Brute is a food golem, but this is just a horror. Heartflame Duelist is next. Instants and sorceries you control have lifelink. We've seen that ability like 1,000 times. It's almost never good. And then you can pay 2 and a green to lightning, or 2 and a red to Lightning Bolt. Again, I don't see this card being that good. I guess it's 4 mana cheaper than Sung Song and Fire Speaker, which is cool. 2 mana cheaper than Radiant Scroll Wielder, but I don't think it's going to be enough. Lich Knight's Conquest, 4 and a black, sacrifice any number of artifacts, enchantments, or tokens, and then return that many creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. This is a very cool, very good Reanimator card. And I could definitely see some play. Like, it seems strong. Definitely not in Modern, but definitely in Commander. Bringing back a whole bunch of targets is going to be cool. Fortunately, it has to be your graveyard, but oh well, it's definitely better from like Rise from the Dead or whatever. And if you have tokens to sacrifice, it could make your board really big. But yeah. Thunderous Debut. 6 green, bargain. Look at the top 20 cards of your library. You may reveal up to 2 creature cards from among them. If the spell was bargain, put the revealed creatures onto the battlefield. Otherwise, put the revealed cards into your hand. Then shuffle. I think this is cool. It's kind of like Tooth and Nail. You can assemble a 2-card combo. However, Tooth and Nail is just, I would say, strictly better. So in that fact, I don't think it's going to see too much play. Next up is Pollen Shield Hair. Creature tokens you control get +1/+1. So that's a cool ability in general. Creature token, typal, that kind of stuff. Um, and then 1 green, target creature you control gains vigilance and +X/+X, where X is the number of creatures you control. So it's basically Might of the Masses. Might of the Masses doesn't see any play. I don't think this is going to see play in Modern, but creature token decks are definitely going to use this in Commander. Talion's Messenger, 2 and a blue, 1/3 flyer. Whenever you attack with 1 or more fairies, draw a card, then discard a card. Whenever you discard a card this way, put a +1/+1 counter on target fairy you control. I don't think the body's good enough for this to be strong. The fact that it doesn't have to attack and other fairies can attack is fine, but the fact that it's only drawing 1 card, no matter how many fairies you attack with, I don't think it's really going anywhere. Maybe Fairy Tribal, but even then you have to discard the cards, so I don't see it being used. Wildwood Mentor, 2 and a green. Whenever a token enters, put a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever it attacks, another target creature gets +X/+X, where X is its power. Yeah, definitely some power to this card. If you're getting treasures, like Bootlegger's Stash, tapping out, adding 10 treasures, making it 11/11, and then giving +X/+X to your commander, helping them swing in for lethal, I think this could be really good. But it's definitely like a deck-specific card. It's not a staple, but definitely going to be good. Expel the Interlopers. 3 white, choose a number between 0 and 10. Destroy all creatures with power greater than or equal to the chosen number. So, this could be, you say 2, and then that wipes out everything but your 1/1 soldiers. Something like that. I think it could be very strong. However, in general, I think most decks are just going to want Wrath of God or Damn or whatever. Yeah, not a staple. Farsight Ritual, 2 blue, bargain. Look at the top 4 cards of your library. If it was bargain, look at the top 8. Put 2 of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom in any order. I think 2 cards for 4 mana really isn't enough. I don't see this seeing any play outside of like, not constructed, like draft. Leyline of... Oh, wait, no, that's a reprint. Fairy Slumber Party. I don't know who decided that was a good idea. Return all creatures, like the name. It sounds like an unset card. Return all creatures to their owner's hand. That does include yours. For each opponent who controlled a creature returned this way, you create 2 1/1 fairies. This creature can only block creatures with flying, and it has flying. So I guess in Commander with 3 opponents, you're creating 6 fairies. I don't see this being good in Modern. This is definitely a Commander card. However, the fairies don't have haste, so your opponents are going to be able to rebuild their board by the time it attacks. The fact that they can bring their creatures back, it's not real removal. I think it's okay, but I don't see it seeing that much play. Elvish Archivist, 1 green, 0/1. Whenever 1 or more artifacts enter the battlefield, put 2 +1/+1 counters on it. This ability triggers only once per turn. The effect that kills the card, generally. And then whenever 1 or more enchantments enter the battlefield under your control, draw a card. This ability triggers only once each turn. I hate that line of text, because this card could be really cool, but that line of text really hurts it. Scalding Viper is next. It's 1 red. Whenever an opponent casts a spell with mana value 3 or less, deals 1 damage to that player. The fact that it's only opponents is pretty cool. It's kind of like Xenagos Eidolon of Revels. So that's kind of good. On the other side, it's Steam Clean. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. I think together it's pretty strong, actually. Because a 2-mana 2/1 isn't terrible. It's going to be burning your opponents, which is okay. 1 damage really isn't enough. But the fact that it can return things on the other side, I think it's got some potential. But let me put it this way. I think it's got more potential than some of the other cards that I've seen so far, but I don't see this being great. Horned Lock Whale. 4 blue, 6/6, flash, ward 2. Whenever it enters the battle, or it enters tapped, unless it's your turn. So I guess you can flash it in so you don't have to pay on your turn. However, I think in general, you want to flash something in to be a blocker or for some sort of ability, so this really doesn't do it. And then 1 in a blue, the owner of target attacking creature you don't control puts it on the top or bottom of their library. I generally like this effect because you can, like, force an opponent to put it back on top, and then they're not drawing into new cards and new, like, ways to play their hand. They're stuck with whatever they just had. It only removes it for 1 turn, but, it's something. I think the adventure effect is good, but Hornlock Whale, I don't see seeing any play. Let's see, Leyline. Spiteful Hex Mage. 1 black, 3/2, enters the battlefield, create a curse roll attached to target creature you control. So Cursed Roll makes enchanted creature a 1/1. I think so it could be a 1-mana 3/2. You're going to have to neuter something else you have. However, making Ragavan from a 2/1 to a 1/1, I don't really know how much that matters. I think it could be good. However, I think that's just because I see 1-mana 3/2 and I want it to work. It's probably not going to be that good. Feral Encounter. Green, look at the top 5 cards of your library. You may exile a creature from among them. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in random order. You may cast the exiled card this turn. At the beginning of the next combat step, target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to up to 1 target creature you don't control. So this is definitely better than a lot of the other fight abilities because it can give you card advantage. It can get you a creature. However, I think outside of fighting, it's not really that great. You only have one turn to cast the creature. And it's okay, but I don't see it being anything special. Spellbook Vendor. 1 white, 2/2, vigilance. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you may pay 1. When you do, create a sorcerer roll attached to target creature you control. So enchanted creature has +1/+1, and whenever it attacks, scry 1. So this can help pump your board. Creatures can only have 1 roll at a time, so that kind of hurts its playability, but in general, I think it's okay. Not really a staple for any certain deck, unless maybe something like Sithis, which I think is whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card, gain 1 life. So this becomes a 1-mana draw card on each of your turns. Could be good, but I think outside of some limited strategies, it's not going to be great. Next up is Food Fight. It's 1 in a red. Artifacts you control have sacrificed this artifact. Deals damage equal to 1 plus the number of permanents named Food Fight you control. I think this card is funny. However, it's not going to see any play. And I hate the fact that you can only have 1 Food Fight in Commander unless you copy it. And copying enchantments is a lot harder than copying creatures. So I don't really see this having any play, which makes me sad. Next up is Lord Skitter, Sewer King. So it's a rat noble, 2 black, 3/3. Whenever a rat enters the battlefield, exile up to 1 card from an opponent's graveyard. At the beginning of combat on your turn, you create a rat token. I I think this is not as good as the other rat commanders we have, like Ashcoat or I think, is it Marunar? The one that creates X rats, where X is the number of rats you control. I don't think it's all that great. However, exiling from an opponent's graveyard is okay. It's going to create you that token each turn. Uh, but I don't see it being that great. Whoa, actually, wait. Sanguine Bond printed 88 cents? That's going to be great for budget brews. Specter of Mortality is 3 black, 3/3 flying. Enters the battlefield, you may exile one or more creature cards from your graveyard. When you do, each other creature gets -X until end of turn, where X is the number of creature cards exiled this way. Definitely not strong enough. It's going to remove one thing. But it's each other. Okay, so it could be a board wipe, like Toxic Deluge style, where it gets around indestructible. But outside of that, I don't think this is gonna be good enough. Because you have to have the creature cards in your graveyard, and in general, when you have creature cards in your graveyard, you want to be reanimating them. You want to be doing delve. Well, not really delve, but you know what I mean. You want them to stay there, I guess. And I don't think it's enough of a payoff. That's a cool printing of Phyrexian Life. Next up is Fawnsbane Troll. 2 black green, enters, create a monster roll attached to it. So it's a 5/5 and trample for 4, which is pretty good. You can pay 1, sacrifice an aura attached to it to have it fight a creature, and if that creature would die, exile it instead. So, it can be good. It enters as a 5/5 trample, which is solid, but I don't really think there's a deck that's specifically looking for it, so I'm just going to say it's meh. Next up is Redcap Gutter Dweller. 2 red, 3/3 menace, enters the battlefield, you create 2 rats. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may sacrifice another creature. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it, exile the top card of your library, and you may play it this turn. So, I guess it puts you up for like an extra draw, kind of, for 2 turns. The rats are okay. I don't see this seeing any play. The fact that rats can't block kind of hurts, and I 4 mana. Well, I guess 4 mana 3/3. It's not. No. Tale for the Ages. Enchanted creatures you control get +2/+2. This is complicated, because a lot of times when I think of like enchantment or like enchanted creatures with means auras, I think of a go tall aura strategy. But this one's you to kind of pump your entire board. I guess it's supposed to go with the rolls, but I'm not really sure. I don't see this seeing much play, though. Next up is Rotisserie Elemental. This is a funny name, funny card. So it's a red 1 mana, it's a 1/1 Menace Elemental. When it deals combat damage to a player, put a skewer counter on it. Then you may sacrifice it. If you do, you exile the top X cards to your library, where X is the number of skewer counters that were on it. And then you may play those cards this turn. So it's a good card advantage engine. I guess you could proliferate or try and put counters on it other ways. However, it doesn't have haste, so it's not getting in like turn 1 to sneak in for a hit and get that first skewer counter. I think it's kind of meh, but overall, I think I'm going to play it in Asbrand and Mordecai just in a cold card just for the kitchen theming. Next up is Ingenious Prodigy. X and a blue, 0/1, can't be blocked by creatures with greater power. Enters with X +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, if Ingenious Prodigy has 1 or more +1/+1 counters on it, you can remove a counter to draw a card. So I think this could be good. There are other ways to put counters on it, and it could just be like a draw on each of your turns. Definitely in Simic decks, but I don't think it's going to be like... there's no deck really looking for it, I guess. Next up is Three Blind Mice. It's a saga, 2 and a white. On 1, create a 1/1 mouse creature token. On 2 and 3, you create a token that's a copy of target token you control. Note, this doesn't have to be the mouse. So if you have something bigger, copy that. Or, copy whatever. Do something cool with it. Copy. You know what I mean. Copy something big, copy something flashy, I know there was a way to copy enchantments earlier in the set. Do something like that. Then on 4, creatures you control get +1/+1 in vigilance. This is okay. I could see this being played a lot in draft, like if you pulled it, because it's 3 creatures. It's gonna help you block, and then it can pump your creatures to help finish games. It's gonna see in play in like Tom Bombadil, but outside of Saga's decks, I don't think it's really worth it. Huntsman's Redemption, on the other hand, has Karuk, so it's always worth it. I don't know why he isn't in the set, because it's the last time we saw him. Why wasn't he in New Phyrexia in Vorinclex's arena, being like Vorinclex's right-hand man? Because they're both like, big, strong. But I get, he was he was freed from his curse. He's supposed to be better, but like, at the same time, I liked him being big and whatever. So, 2 and a green, so 3 mana. When it comes in, you create a 3/3 beast. So it more or less is a 3 mana 3/3. Not bad. You can sacrifice a creature. If you do, search your library for a creature or land card, or basic land. Reveal it, put it in your hand. This is a green tutor. I think that's pretty cool. Well, a green already has creature tutors, but it's another green creature tutor. I think this is going to be more on the budget side, which I think is going to be good for a lot of players. And then up to 2 target creatures get +2/+2 and trample until end of turn. This can help you finish off games. Trample is good, but I'm not really sure what in all this deck would want. I mean, you can just use it as a tutor, especially in budget, but there's only so much to it. Lord Skitter's Blessing, 1 and a black. When it enters, create a Wicked Roll token. Attached to target creature you control. Reminder, Wicked is +1/+1, and when it's put in the battlefield, each opponent loses, or put in the graveyard, each opponent loses a life. At the beginning of your draw step, if you control an enchanted creature, you lose 1 life and draw an additional card. So, how I'm seeing this is just cheaper for Phyrexian Arena. And I like that. I think that's kind of cool, but you have to keep that creature around. Because black auras really isn't a thing. I think this card could be a good pickup. It's cheaper than Phyrexian Arena, both in cost and mana value. I think it could be some play, and it does pump up the creature that it puts the Wicked Roll on, so I don't know. I think this is going to be solid. Next up is Raging Battle Mouse. 1 in a red. The second spell you cast each turn costs 1 less to cast. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if 2 or more non-land permanents enter the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1 until end of turn. I'm going to say this is nothing special. This is going to be bulk box. It doesn't have haste, doesn't have trample. It's not like it gets a +1/+1 counter. At best, it's a 3/2. And your second spell, costing 1 less, I don't think is going to be enough to matter. Maybe if it was 2 or more, but I don't see it. The Apprentice's Folly. 2 blue-red. It's a saga. Choose target non-token creature you control that doesn't have the same name as a token you control. Create a token that's a copy of it, except it isn't legendary, and is a reflection in addition to its other types and has haste. So you do that for 2 turns, and then on the 3rd turn, you sacrifice all reflections. I I think it's going to be bulk bin. Creating tokens is cool. I guess you could use it to copy things with good ETBs. But other than that, I don't see anything going on here. It's weird. They just reprinted this in Zendikar or Dominaria Remastered, so I don't know why it's being reprinted again. Imidane the Pyro Hammer. 2 red, 4/4 legendary creature. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery Whenever an instant or sorcery you control that targets only a single creature deals damage to that creature, Imidane deals that much damage to each opponent. So I guess you bolt your opponent's creatures, Unholy Heat, and she goes back and hits their face. I think, again, this is going to work in Solfim so that you can use your bolt and whatever on creatures. Use it like removal, and her ability will double. Actually, that's really good, because, you cast a Braid, deal 3 damage to a creature, Solfim doubles it into 6, then she'll deal that much damage to each opponent, Solfim will double it into 12. So I think that's actually pretty strong. And then, if you have something like, Thrain God, what's his name? Is it Torbran? Torbran? Yeah, it might be Torbran. But he's 1 red. Red sources you control deal an additional 2 damage. So a Braid would deal 5. Then it would be doubled. Wait, is that how it works? I'm trying to remember if you add then multiply or multiply then add. I think you multiply then add. So a Braid would deal 6, and then +2, so it deals 8, and then she'll hit, so that's an additional 16, and then +2, 18 damage. So, there's a lot of potential in a Solfim deck, but outside of that, I don't really know where else this is going to see play. Restless Bouviac comes at 2/2. Whenever it attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. I'm just going to say it, it's boring. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. Becomes a 2/1. As long as it's your turn, it has first strike, which is okay. And then it scries 1. I guess the first strike is going to help it stick around. Assuming it's going to kill your opponent's creature first. But they can just double block it, and then you're down a land. I think that's the problem with land creatures, is they can... Oh, look, Restless Bouviac becomes a creature. Oh, look, it's a 2/2. Oh, look, there's Lightning Bolt. Then you're down a land, and that's probably the worst thing that could happen. Because usually they have to pay 3 mana for Stone Rain. This just makes Lightning Bolt Stone Rain for 1 mana, so I don't think it can keep up. And that's actually the last card on the list. So stay tuned for the uncommon review. I'm gonna give my voice a little rest because this has been a lot. So I'll see you another time. Bye-bye.